All right, everyone, welcome back to the FwooshCast, the podcast that never takes at least first Friday off. Brian from Super7, thanks so much for joining us. You know, as the lead-in, I was going to do my best Neil Young impersonation singing NoFX songs, but I did not want you dropping on me right away, but welcome back.
That Instagram post has generated more comments than I think anything I've posted in years, you know, which is like, do you want the engagement or is it perceived negativity?
You got to stay spicy for that.
Apparently got to take the spicy hot takes here, which is it's okay to not like Neil Young.
Yeah. Well, actually, though, it's a good thing though, because it gives me an excuse to bring up some music topics, because I don't think we've talked about a whole lot of music in the past couple of sessions. So hopefully we can do a little bit of that.
Let's do a little bit of that. But today, besides the fact that we're both wearing black, it's a holiday.
Dun, da, da, da.
A national holiday. Everybody.
The Holy of Holies.
Exactly. We spent a whole 6 weeks getting ready for Halloween. We all dressed up. We did everything. You've got 3 days to transition your life into Godzilla Day. And if you haven't done it, I feel bad for you.
Yeah.
Your house should have spikes on the outside of it that are glowing. You should be able to wake up and have radiator breath. It's not even radiation. I'm radiator breath. That's just, that's what it's like kind of when I grow up.
Kick those gas fireplaces into overdrive and breathe some, I guess, fires. It's about as close as you're gonna get.
It's your pyrotechnic lizard holiday.
Yeah. And happy Godzilla Day to you, because I know you celebrate. So we got to talk about that too. So
not only that, I very much I celebrate. Yes, I am in on Godzilla Day.
This has been a great green week, greenish kind of color week, because you go straight from Creature, from Halloween, right, to Godzilla. So we're living it.
It's true.
Yeah. Well, do you want to start with Godzilla? I mean,
we can talk about Godzilla. Let's talk about Godzilla.
Okay, I feel like we don't talk about that enough, and that simply, I think, comes because I like Godzilla, but I am not a Godzilla expert. So I wanted to talk to you more from like a fan, but not an expert level, because I think you can provide that sort of thing. But I've got a couple of the Ultimates now. The Heat Ray of Godzilla and there's the Shogun Ultimates one as well. Yeah, there it is. You're in like full Rager mode right there. I don't have that head on there, but Godzilla. It's Godzilla Day, and I know Godzilla means a lot to you. So
we started on Godzilla. Godzilla. First issue of the magazine is an article on the Marathon Bullmark Godzilla, and one of the two first exclusives we ever made was a 54 Godzilla from Bear Model.
Yeah, and that's where you started. That's been 20, close to 20 years?
23 years. That was 2001.
23 years ago, and now in 2023, you are making all kinds of Godzilla stuff. So I guess I would ask, as someone who is obviously a Godzilla fan, I mean, how's this journey been for you on this particular topic?
Are we talking about it as a fan? Are we talking about it as a company? Which one do you want to start?
I think well, maybe how one kind of plays into the other, because you're kind of in a unique spot, right?
Yeah, obviously as a collector, I did not see the Shogun Godzilla when I was a kid. Didn't know it existed. I had a friend that had a Mazinga and I had a friend that had a Raydeen. I never saw the Godzilla as a kid, but I watched more than my fair share of Saturday afternoon Godzilla movies.
Yeah.
But I never had a Godzilla toy. And so when I started collecting toys in 91, you could still buy the 85 Imperial at Toys R Us.
Wow.
So that, to a lot of people, is the first Godzilla toy. By that time, though, as I started collecting toys, I immediately knew about the Shogun Godzilla. It was like, that was rad. The 85 Imperial, which we did a color tribute of on Reaction, was always kind of like, that's your cheap Godzilla, if you will. and they have the
Okay.
two sizes, the small size and the big size.
Yeah, yeah.
I have multiple different display dump boxes from that time frame.
Wow.
Where you would go to Toys R Us and they'd have them dumped into a box, and they would change the
Yeah.
box once in a while. And I have those that I got at the time. And 91 is also coincidentally when Bandai started making Godzilla vinyls again. There were some people that were importing them into the States for like comic book shops and stuff. So in 91, that's when I discovered, if you will, Godzilla toys at large. That's when you had, like I said, Bandai was making the 91 series Godzilla, Godzilla 62, Godzilla 64, King Ghidorah, and a few others, as well as they made, the 89 Godzilla in the new movie. Then they had sorry, I messed that up with the 89, but we're gonna skip that part. Everybody, I just lost all my cred. But they also,
I was gonna say, it's like you're the one that's gonna know this.
And then also Subaraya was reissuing the Bullmark sculpts in 91 with little paper hang tags. And so immediately once I discovered that there were other Godzilla toys out in the world besides the Shogun Godzilla, a few of the Beetland imports of Popey items like the Beetland Bank, the Beetland Lamp, there's some small Beetland figures, there's the Popey Godzilla gang figure, and then there was the Imperial figure. That's what opened me into collecting vintage Japanese toys, and Godzilla was like, there's only a handful of figures I can get in the States, and most of these are imported from Japan.
Yeah.
Then here's this new stuff being made that's super cool, and it's all from Japan. So it's like, oh, if you really want to be sort of material about Godzilla toys made in the States, you have, the Shogun was sculpted for the States. It's different than the Japanese one. You have some of the White Castle promo Godzilla toys from the 70s, but there really aren't that many. There's only a handful, some of the little grabbers and stuff. And when I saw all the stuff that was in Japan, that's when I dove in and trying to sort out what had been made. Ultimately, 10 years later, 2001, when we launched Super 7, that was part of the impetus of the magazine. Was there was no place you could go and get any information about these Japanese toys and what was made and what's out there. Because I don't know how it is for you, but how it was for me at that time is you either saw it for sale someplace, you saw it in a collection, or you saw it in a book or magazine. That was the only place. So a lot of people's whole experience in toy collecting pre-internet, and even through the first probably 5-10 years of the internet, was what's the guidebook? What's the reference article that tells me what's available? That's the only way to know. And that was how you built your checklist. That's how you knew sometimes what something was when you saw it. If you were out someplace random and you saw some weird Japanese monster, you hadn't seen the show, you'd be like, it's cool, but I don't know what it is. Where then you could put it into context, if you will, if you especially if you're talking about the ultra monsters. But since then, I was on a mission to collect all the Godzilla stuff and then make the stuff that I didn't have. So when you really start talking about the early years of Super 7, the first recolor is the clear gray 54 bear model. And the premise behind that was it was underwater. Here it is in grayscale in a black and white movie in clear, like it is underwater. That would be the effect you get.
Was that chosen because it was something that you wanted particularly? Was it something that you knew, like, around the community of people that you interacted with, that it was something that hadn't been?
I think I've touched on this in other interviews, and we've already lost 90% of the action figure collectors here already when we're talking about Godzilla. I swear we'll get back to content you like. Is that, like I said, when we talk about toys being made in Japan, they are usually very, very reverential. Very, very, and when I say reverential, I mean that meaning that they look to the past, or they look to accuracy as they're guideposts. Like, we all know that just about any die cast or action figure you're going to get, it's like, man, that it looks just like the thing. Sometimes to a fault, in my opinion, where it gets so accurate it loses the charm of it being a toy or functionality in becoming a toy. The other thing is that when, especially on the vinyl side, when they went to paint things or make reissues or recolors, they were usually referential, which is slightly different than reverential. So they would revere old toys or whatever. So they'd be like, oh, we're going to repaint this in Marathon 55 blue, or we're going to repaint this like this. Everything was a tribute colorway to a vintage toy color that had already come before us. So when we started going in there, we were coming from a point of view of aesthetics. Because in a lot of cases, if you talk about especially some of the weirder, more obscure TV shows that I started collecting, I've never seen it. Like, I've never seen an Ozyman when I found out an Ozyman. If anybody's going to look up an Ozyman, he's a superhero that is a moth that shoots electric bolts. But what he does is he turns into a cocoon first. He's got a timer that's like 5 minutes that he has to be in a cocoon. And then he bursts out of the cocoon as an Ozyman the moth. And an Ozyman the moth, the hero, is baby blue with red and yellow lightning bolts basically carved into all over him. So the first time I see an Ozyman, of course I've never seen the show. I have no idea if it's good or bad. I know nothing about it. But that fucking blue dude covered in lightning bolts with the moth thing over the top of his head. This is the coolest thing I've seen ever. So I'm reacting to so much of this product in a purely visual way, in a purely aesthetic way. So when we start recoloring Japanese toys and working with manufacturers in Japan, we start recoloring toys in an aesthetic way, not in a reverential or referential way.
Gotcha.
So one of the early things, one of my favorite characters in the whole Toho world is Hedorah, the Smog Monster. At that time, you could get the vintage bull marks. There was the 91 Bandai. And I think there was 1 or 2 modern vinyls that had been made of Hedorah. At that time, Hedorah was definitely, especially in Japan, considered C or D list of a monster, very unpopular. Obviously, Americans, with their point of view, are like, Hedorah as a toy is bonkers. We love Hedorah. So I immediately, anybody that had a Hedorah sculpt, immediately I was like, how do I recolor this? So one of the early ones we worked with CCP, and we did this crawling Hedorah they had, and we recolored it in orange with yellow highlights, and we called it Meltdown Hedorah. It has nothing to do with anything that has to do with the history of it, but as a toy, it looked fucking amazing. And what happened is we started making all these whacked out recolors that became very popular because they didn't look like anything anybody had made before. That then led us into working with Japanese companies to design toys for them. So like Marathon, if you look, they have a giant size Godzilla that's a scale up of the original Marathon Godzilla. And that's because between Marathon and Bullmark, they made a giant Godzilla, but I really disliked the sculpt. And I love the original sculpt. So I was like, can we make that in this style? When it came to, we would go in and say, like, Bullmark made a 3-inch, a 5-inch, a 9-inch, a 12-inch. That's their standards. But on this line, they never made the 5-inch, or this line, they never made the 12-inch. And we would say, I want you to sculpt that. I want to make that as placeholders. You know, I want to fill my collection. I'm missing holes. Where I think the prevailing attitude so often in Japan, not negatively, was just because they had spent so much time with it and grown up with it. They're like, oh, they never made a 5-inch. They don't think about it that where us, we're like, I'm trying to quantify what's been made, and there's a hole here. We see the hole maybe in a different way than they see the hole. Does that make any sense?
Yes, just in context.
In context, sorry. The missing piece that they don't see. And then we would also cross-pollinate stuff. There's a pretty famous line for us, Americans, once again, turned this line into a huge line that wasn't a line over there called Astromu. And they're Nakajima Nodders with the heads that move and everything, and they're clear bodies with pipe cleaners in the arms and legs, glitter pipe cleaners.
Wow.
And they're amazing. So same thing, we said, all right, standard size Jet Jaguar that was never made, let's make that in clear with pipe cleaners in it.
Yeah.
And it's, I know where one is. It takes me 2 seconds. I'm
Okay.
gonna sample.
All right, let's do it.
Speed ramp. Here comes the speed ramp.
I'll just I don't think I'm capable of making accurate Godzilla noises, but I will put the mask back on because everyone will be seeing this after Godzilla Day, of course. But if you're going to celebrate Godzilla Day, you need to have the mask on, I suppose.
The Benny Hill music. All right. So here he is.
Yeah.
We did with M1. I mean, how cool is that?
Yeah.
You know, and this was the kind of stuff that we would do that would just
pipe cleaners. That's so cool.
People just go, what are you doing? Like, well, we're pulling all these strands together to make something that's aesthetically really interesting, plus fits in with the vernacular of the characters.
Yeah.
So anyways, and then it's orange and yellow because it's Super 7.
Yeah.
Like we do everything orange and black and stuff.
Right.
Anywho, that's coming all the way back around to it. Finally getting to bring all this back now into an American form factor, action figures in that way, and getting to make Godzilla again is awesome and exciting. Yeah. I'm trying to make it fun, and that's why you see things like same thing. I go, what's not been done? What do I not have? I don't have 1200 degree Godzilla where he's fully, the skeleton's coming out, and you know, it's like that's never been. Arthur Adams Bloody Godzilla from Dark Horse, that's never been. Like, I'm trying to get into spaces where you don't necessarily have this. And you know, like with the Ultimates line, it's so funny because it's same thing where I'm like, they have to be in scale with each other. And so they just keep getting bigger and bigger and more elaborate and more elaborate. And it's ridiculous. But part of me is like, but Destroyer's got to be bigger. He can't be the same height.
Right. So, and that was something that I was going to ask about is, you know, someone who's not a, you know, full-blown expert, is that there's a lot. I mean, Godzilla has such a huge and varied history. And when you're talking about reaction, I feel like you have a little bit more freedom to get, you know, off in those corners and get weird, but Ultimates kind of commands, it's a lot more of a bigger undertaking, I think. So how do you balance that with wanting to fill those places, right?
Yeah, I mean, and that's a perfect synopsis of it, quite frankly, is that at that price point, people cannot buy them as disposably, if you will. It can't be on a whim as much. So you don't have the same level of freedom, at least in the beginning, you know, with Ultimates to do that. So we have to be much more measured with how those Ultimates come out. Where, yeah, with Reaction, we can get wacky. I mean, we announced, I think, 3 Reaction figures today. And 2 of them are Bullmark tribute colors. It's Gigan in the flesh with metallic blue, and Rodan in the flesh with metallic blue, and I believe the Imperial Godzilla recolor. So they're throwbacks to toy colorways for toy collectors, but we're taking vinyl toy colors from the 60s and applying them to action figures styled in the manner of the 70s and 80s, sold to a customer in the 2020s.
Right.
So you know, those Venn diagrams and those strands get a little long.
Yeah.
It's that thing where for certain people, it's like, that's cool. I don't need that one. Like, I'm here to have a Gigan that looks like it walked out of the movie, and we've got that for you. Right. But I can also have this other Gigan for a guy that's just like, oh my God, nothing's been colored like that original blue Gigan, which has no basis in what he's colored like in the movie.
Right.
since the 60s. That's so crazy.
The if you know, you
It's
know type of stuff, right? Yeah.
yeah, and it looks cool aesthetically.
Hmm.
It's not, it doesn't always have to be about accuracy. It can be about the aesthetics and the emotion in it as well. And
Hmm.
so it's interesting because like the response on those Godzilla figures so far has been much stronger than I thought. Where, I figured, I know that customer, that reaction Godzilla customer pretty well,
Hmm.
because he's me. But it's like you never quite, with some of these deep cuts, like if everybody's gonna be like, that's a good idea, or if it's just a small group of people are like, that's the idea for me, and that's fine. These have been much stronger than I anticipated. And it is, I think, because that same thing, because it is fun. I'm trying to make this fun and play with it, and also make it a thing where, um, like we've talked about this before. There is that guy that is interested in, I want a whole shelf of these in 29
Yeah.
colors. And that guy's excited. Where the other, I'm not like, oh, they're just making another recolor to milk this and make me pay them more money. It's like, I'm not trying to make you do anything, but I'm trying to have fun with you collecting.
Right. And from that design, going after the aesthetic piece as you mentioned, and kind of filling some of these places that haven't been filled before. It feels like that's the fun playground to be in. How do you balance with the customer that's like, hey, I'm about iconography. I may not be like totally entrenched with Godzilla, but I know enough of the mythos for some of the monsters and whatnot. But I need that kind of defining, look that everybody associates and says, hey, that's Godzilla or that's Dora, things like that.
Usually that's the first release of the figure that we make.
Hmm.
So, especially if you're talking about reaction, like every wave, like they're the core. This is the one from the movie. This is the figure, So we've already done Gigan as he
Hmm.
was. Then we made a glow in the dark Gigan. Now it's like, here's the Bullmark Gigan. And what's interesting about that is when we do that, we do see people going backwards and going, oh, hey, tell me more about this.
Right.
I want to know about the bull marks. Tell me about those. And at the same time, if you like that stuff, but don't want to shell out $300 or $400 for a vintage Gigan, here's a way
Yeah.
to have it.
Yeah. Yeah. And Godzilla is one of those, as a long enduring property mythos. I mean, I think you run into places like with any property that's been around for a long time where there are people that are very assigned to certain eras or
Oh,
looks or
completely.
whatnot. um
Yeah, you
that
have the Showa
that's a
group and the
balancing act.
Heisei
Yeah.
group.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. That's a balancing act to keep everybody engaged and interested, right?
Yeah, yeah. And that's, once again, if we haven't talked about it overtly, which I think we have in the past, is reaction is a vintage form factor. So we're
Hmm.
really focused on Showa era stuff and working our way to Heisei,
Hmm.
where Ultimates is a much more modern interpretation of an action figure. So we're starting with Heisei and we'll eventually work our way
Work
to
them
Showa.
back. Ah, gotcha. Gotcha. Okay. Okay. That's cool. So,
Almost like we thought about it.
yeah, yeah, it's almost like you've meticulously planned out, how this is going to go. But from an Ultimates perspective, we've had a few of the waves released now. We've got some that are in production,
A lot
as
in production.
it's yeah, that right now. Is there, other than starting in one place and kind of working towards the other, for planning the future, or what people may be seeing next, who are interested to get those next reveals without saying, oh well, here it is. Is there a way that you can kind of summarize the path, other than as you said, starting with Heisei and going back to Showa, or
Um, hmm. I'm trying to actually think about that question and what you're driving towards, because because in some ways it is what I just said, but I think that there's a lot of Godzilla out there, and
Mhm.
there's a lot that's coming. I mean, I don't know if everybody watched the new -1 trailer that came out today.
Mhm.
Looking hot. That end scene where the blue spikes start chunking up out of the body, that's all cool and new. Like, there's some different stuff. It's going to be an interesting, I'm excited for it. I'm just trying to, within reason, make Godzilla for everybody.
Yeah.
I want to make it so that everybody has a chance to fall in love with it the same way I did. Is that the summary you were looking for?
Yeah. That was definitely part of it.
True.
The other part of it too is that Godzilla comes with a wide and varied swath of minor characters and whatnot.
And I want to make all of them.
Yeah, and when we've talked about that in like the reaction format is how you can say, okay, here's that iconic movie version, and then but Ultimates is a different animal when you're talking about pretty
the
unique
reality,
tooling for every monster, right?
Like I said, we're working in here. Like, I got designs on everybody from Spigo to Chimicarus and everything.
Yeah,
and I think I can get to them through reaction. Where, as you said, I think it would be very difficult to get an Ultimates customer to buy enough of a Chimicarus to make it worth our time, or enough of a Gabra to make it worth our time. Somebody right now is Googling Chimicarus. Chimicarus is a giant praying mantis.
That sounds great to me.
Yes, but it's not exactly one of those where you're like, oh, I remember that guy. It's like they know Mothra, they know Rodan, they know Mechagodzilla.
Yeah.
Then it gets real fuzzy real quick for people.
Wow. Well, I'm excited because this is one of those that every once in a while there's an Ultimates release where it's like I didn't have a chance to ever see it like at a show, and you show them off in videos, we see the renders and whatnot, but getting something like this in hand in a physical space is really something different, and these are such big and chunky figures to play with that I don't know. I'm excited to be able to, as a more casual fan, be able to see more of the different monsters and whatnot that I know that you've probably got cooking at some point, and being able to pick some of those out just to have them as an appreciation for the design and the figure themselves. So
definitely.
Well, then are you doing anything? I mean, you guys as Super7 announced some things for Godzilla Day and whatnot. Is Brian the fan doing anything specific for Godzilla Day this year?
You mean other than like dressing my house as Godzilla?
I was gonna say Godzilla Day every day type of thing. Maybe that's
I should pick up a green cake on the way home for the kids. Godzilla Day, kids. You gotta have a cake. No, nothing more than, like I said, we've got a couple releases. The trailer came out today. There's some really fun stuff that we've got coming. There's a fun figure for next month that's coming out.
Cool.
I am keeping the Godzilla dream alive for Godzilla Day.
Good. Well, like I said, I'm excited to see what's next, and probably, I guess, by the time we would talk again, that new stuff for the month of November will be revealed, so we can circle back up.
Yeah, I mean, we've shown pictures of it. This isn't the final. This is a prototype, actually, but like we showed the Godzilla skeleton at New York Comic-Con. So this is awesome. After the oxygen destroyer goes up and he's dead on his skeleton on the seabed in a little diorama box. So this is an older prototype with obviously no ink, but like the little fold-ups to make the seabed with little plants and different things. Like, and it's pushed up. It's lower in the final, but like this is a really cool thing. It's the same thing. There's never been a Godzilla skeleton made.
Yeah. That's crazy to me, because that imagery is pretty striking and strong, that it's just never been done. And skeletons are cool, so
you're not gonna tell me twice. But it's the same thing where that's the thing where it's like that's what I want to get into. It's like, and what's the coolest presentation? Like I said, this one's not, the paper's not even in the right place, so I'm doing a disservice. But it's like, oh, let's make this little diorama box that it comes in with him laying on the seabed floor with the oxygen destroyer.
Yeah.
Like, like, cool, my God, little stuff.
Heck yeah. Heck yeah. Well,
Like I said,
it's a
these
lot.
guys they want to hear about Thundercats. They want to hear
Well,
about G.I. Joe. They want to hear about Turtle. They don't want to hear about Godzilla for
yeah,
30
yeah,
minutes.
I think they do, and this has been, this has been a fun conversation to me because it's educational, but at the same time, it shows that a lot of the properties that you just spoke about that people are into, it's like Godzilla is just as much, if not more, when it comes to histrionics and things like that. So it's cool to be able to talk to you personally about it because it's been what I assume such a large part of your life in many different forms, and now you're bringing them out.
Yeah, and it's also nice that now in the modern setting, there's just so many people that collect Godzilla. It didn't used to be. It did
Yeah,
not used to be the thing where like it warranted shelf space.
yeah,
And now it is like Godzilla's popular again,
that's awesome.
which it's great.
That's awesome. That's
Whatever little
awesome.
bit I did to help that, so be it.
Hey, part of the legendarium now at this point. We'll say that. Okay, well, we started off saying that maybe we'd hit on a little bit of music too, because I got to say it over the past month and a half or so, there's been kind of a catch up with so on the Ultimate side, some Ultimates music figures that have really expanded kind of the variety that you've had there, and then you've had some reaction reveals that have been really cool for me personally as well. So we've got what Biggie has just dropped, and
Biggie landed, ODB has
ODB.
landed. Yeah.
Yeah. So reaction, I understand because we kind of talked about that form factor with Godzilla. But how do you make the decision about what personality or who goes into Ultimates as well, right?
Usually it's if it's gonna sound it's not gonna sound crass, I guess it's gonna sound logical. It's gonna sound both at the same time is if it really sells well as a reaction figure, we should
Mhm.
probably make an ultimate of that.
Yeah.
It's a very complicated Venn diagram. We have charts and bars, and we're doing
Yeah.
analytics in the background. No, it's
Spreadsheets
just
like
like,
you wouldn't believe.
yeah, like that one sold like crazy. Oh, we should probably make an ultimate of that.
Yeah. Yeah.
There you go.
Well, I
But there's also a back of like, is it going to translate correctly into that ultimate style?
mhm.
Some things do and some things don't.
Right. Right. Well, it makes me because ODB, Biggie, I love both of them. Absolutely. And I've been admiring, like King Diamond and some of the other ones as well that have come out in Ultimate Scale. But recently you have announced people like Joe Strummer
Mhm.
and specifically Johnny Ramone, and I kind of want to talk about that as well. But
Yes.
those are the guys that I'm like, okay, I'm
I'm
the
ready.
Ultimates or the reaction warrants open and carded, but it's like, whoo, boy, I going by your complicated formula, it's like, man, I hope those do gangbusters because I'd like to see, especially for the Ramones. I think kind of in that Ultimate Scale. So
Yeah, the Ramones have been tricky. We had the license a number of years ago for the Ramones as a band.
hmm
But at this point, as most everybody's aware, it's pretty much just all estates
yeah,
dealing.
yeah,
Getting the different estates to align and approve on things was very, very difficult. So in the
yeah.
end, the Ramones figures where it was like, here's the Ramones, the band, we couldn't get it out.
Mm.
So it never came out. Then we ended up we've done Johnny by himself. And obviously there's other Ramones members we'd like to do, but it just has not, it's not for lack of trying.
Right,
And it's not to say that it won't happen either. It's just none of this moves at the pace that we think it should.
right.
So hopefully you'll eventually get an entire lineup of Ramones.
Yeah, because I'm getting you know quite a nice eclectic reaction, with all Johnny and Joe Strummer added to like Johnny Cash and Slick Rick and the Beastie Boys and whatnot, and obviously the Misfits fiend. Joe Strummer, I was really happy to see him too, because when I think of the Ramones, it's like it's the core four. But with the Clash, it's kind of like Joe was kind of the guy. So
The Clash is so funny because obviously Joe is the main singer. He is
mhm.
the icon, but Mick is just, if you're talking about the music, you've got to include Mick.
Yeah.
And the most famous Clash photo is Topher
Yep.
smashing the guitar.
Yeah.
And so where does it lie? Or sorry, I said Topher, I meant Topper.
Mhm.
Sorry. Once again, cred out the window. I said Topher, not Topper. That's it. Because I'm literally picturing his name written out.
Mm-hmm.
It's like Topher. It's like, no, it's Topper. Come on.
Topper.
Yeah. So in the end, like I said, the Clash licensing is for the name and a few other things. It is not necessarily for the members of the band.
Mm-hmm.
It's here's your images and here's the name of the band. Here
Right.
might be some album covers, but that doesn't mean you can make Joe Strummer or make
Right.
Mick, make Topper. So we had to go around over here and get the license from Joe Strummer. So that's how we make Joe Strummer.
It's kind of like, a lot of movies certain time where they were like, okay, you got to sign away all your image rights and whatnot so it can go into the licensing. I know a lot of older movies, you got to kind of chase the movie itself, but then also the individual likenesses too. So,
yeah, likenesses definitely sometimes. Moreover, these days, it's did they buy out the rights to the makeup? Did they buy out the rights to set design, costume design, all those things? A lot of it was, especially when you start to get into 70s and 80s, cost cutting. They're like, oh, we only need the rights for the movie. And so you can have rights to the movie, but you don't have rights to the actor's face. You don't have rights to the costume design, and you don't have rights to the makeup.
Yeah.
Okay. How are we going to pull this together?
Yeah, costume design and makeup. I mean, I've thought of costume design before, but yeah, makeup,
And that's how
especially
we
on.
ended up with William Stout designs.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Okay. Well, that makes sense. Yeah, that
That was the
definitely
William
makes
Stout
sense.
collection.
Yeah.
Because he owned the designs to all the costumes.
Wow.
The makeup.
Okay. That's cool. Well, it certainly complicates things, but getting some avenues like that, because I don't think anybody ever thought they would get the William Stout collection for Master of the Universe, but that turned out to be, one of the very best corners of that of that overall collection too when it comes to that. So
yeah, too bad the second wave never came out.
yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
one day.
Hopefully one day. Well, another music piece, because you showed them off kind of like brand spanking new at comic in San Diego, and then they showed up again in at Toy Fair. Is the Misfits
The Misfits
five
5.5-inch
five
figures.
five and a half, and I'm not basing this on any conversation I've had with you, but you know how is that all going? Because I know Glenn's a character. And
Are you trying to get me into trouble?
no, I just think that this form captures his character quite well.
No, it's moving along. There's not a final delivery date yet, but we are very, very, very close. I'm very excited. The band's excited. Jerry's excited. Glenn's excited. So I'm hoping that we just finish getting it over I'm trying to think of the final line, get it over the goal line, whatever you want to say, soon. It just, everybody's they do a lot of touring, they do a lot of work, and they're very focused on making sure what comes out is exactly what they want. So it just takes a little while sometimes, but I can't wait for it to be done.
Yeah,
it's gonna be awesome.
Yeah. Well, hopefully, because I think even back at Comic-Con, you said this was like we're gonna just say 2024. Hopefully, for those right now, we'll
2024 for
keep it there.
sure, but when
Yeah.
in 24, I cannot say.
Well, in the meantime, because you guys did all of the reaction, fiends to match up with the album covers and the variant, pressings and things like that. But we recently got the Misfits fiend and the Halloween kids, too. So
Yes.
that was a nice little surprise, kind of in between, because I was like, oh man, it's been a minute since we've gotten any Misfits stuff. But that's a fun one. That again, you did the pink one. It's like I can already think of two other colorways for that
Well,
one
and
pretty
then
easily.
do you know what the bag is?
I think you mentioned it's the
It's the Ruby
like
Records
the
promo
yeah, the Ruby
for the
Records one.
first.
Okay,
They
yeah,
they
yeah.
made promotional Halloween bags for the original Pink release. So that is a reproduction of the original promo Halloween bag for the Pink cover release of Walk Among Us.
that's that's awesome. But
And
like I said,
like I said, there's 10 of us that care, but man, it's rad.
yeah, but still, I mean, just the concept though of the trick or treater in that costume is pretty great. So
Yeah, yeah.
that's a fun one. Well, when you guys, because I mean, your guys' music selections, I mean, I think a lot of it can be drawn to tastes, or those that you guys want to do. Some of it gets a little bit varied, with different types of music and whatnot. When you look at a band or a musician or whatnot, does it go mainly based off of what you like, and obviously, because I mean, removing the do we think it can sell, because that's got to be a part of it, or is there some aesthetic quality to it when you're considering it too, or
I'm broadening my mind a
hmm
little bit when it comes to music, because originally I was like, I don't think people will buy people.
hmm
I think they will buy mascots. It's
yep,
it's Eddie, it's the Misfits Fiend, it's Vic Rattlehead from
right,
Metallica. Do you want Dave Mustaine or do you want Vic Rattlehead? And I was like, oh, Vic Rattlehead. Where I've sort of opened up to, or where I think about it now is for a lot of people, they become characters themselves. And this we
hmm
started this, or they have a mythology. Like if you're talking about Johnny Cash or Lemmy, they've become their
Slick
own.
Rick.
Yeah, they're the well. Let's take rap out of the conversation for a second. If
Okay,
I'm talking
okay,
punk and metal, many of these people have become almost characters themselves. Like the character of Lemmy, the rock star,
right,
has become, what people ascribe the meaning to Cliff Burton is much bigger. Um, and then when we talk about hip hop, basically everybody is playing a character. They're all under nom de plumes.
yeah,
So if you're talking about Slick Rick, it's not his real name. He is the
right.
character of Slick Rick. Method Man is a character, or RZA is a character, or Old Dirty Bastard is a
Old Dirty
character.
Bastard wasn't his real name.
But even though it's very true in a lot of ways to them, it is still, the volume is turned up,
Right.
and and the more you sort of think of, the more I get comfortable with the idea of like the stage personality, then I'm a little bit more comfortable with people. Because like
hmm
if you're talking about that, like, oh, it's the person of, you know, so you're seeing more and more of that. Like same thing, like Joe Strummer has always carried a little bit more than Joe
Sure.
himself, but especially after his passing, it becomes more Joe Strummer the myth than maybe Joe Strummer the person, and that makes it. I think it makes it much easier for somebody to buy and collect that as Joe Strummer the myth to a
Yeah.
degree.
Yeah.
Um, where I'm going to struggle to find the right example here, but sometimes it's just like if it's just kind of a guy in a t-shirt, like, do you need that or not? And
Unless
so,
he becomes the mascot himself with Milo, right? From the
yeah,
Descendants, right?
Milo from the Descendants, you would totally buy. And
Yeah.
even though it's Bill Stevenson's band,
Right.
Would you buy a figure of Bill?
Well, I mean, I would, but I gotcha. I gotcha. I gotcha.
You know, there are people that would. I'm not
Yeah.
saying there are people that would, but it's not as making the jump into the fantastical or mythological is what you do in toys already.
Yeah.
They're not they're real, but they're characters. They're, you know, and so it's that fine line, like, you know, but that is a good example, and it's not to disparage any of those people, but it's like the same thing. If it's social distortion, at what point does Mike Ness become a bit of, okay, he's a bit of a character, the Mike Ness on stage, or the mythology of Mike Ness. At the same time, we started with the skeleton with the martini and the cigarette, because that is much more
When you,
same thing. Like, do you want the skank kid that Sean Carey drew for Circle Jerks, or do you want Keith Morris?
Right.
You know, it's like, oh, you probably want the skank kid first. It's not to say that you wouldn't buy Keith Morris.
Right.
But the skank kid you drew on your folder,
right,
you didn't draw a portrait of Keith Morris. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. Absolutely.
Absolutely. It's highly academic.
We went Hudsucker proxy all of a sudden.
Well, you know, it's cool filling in some of those lines, because I think a lot of, you know, my personal taste aligns with a lot of what you guys are. You're like your core stuff with the music, but you guys are branching out into, you know, some other genres and things to pull people in. Because I got to say, the Grateful Dead Bear, I get it. You guys are based in San Francisco. That one was a little surprising for me.
We are based in San Francisco. It is a countercultural thing here. You know, the hippies were no different than punks or anything else. And there are people that work here that are very into the Dead. So it doesn't always have to be what I like.
Yeah.
People here that are like, I love the Dead and I want to have a figure of the Dead. And it's like, oh, okay. That makes complete sense to me. Now, as a brand, is somebody going to be like, that seems a little off brand? But I'm like, nah, this is San Francisco counterculture. It's just a different flavor of it.
Right. No, absolutely.
I mean, come on, San Francisco, we're one of the epicenters of counterculture.
Yeah. Oh, well, thank goodness, because I was going to say my favorite music comes from, you know, your lovely city there. So, because I was a, you know, early mid 90s East Bay, you know, guy.
There you go.
That's what I grew up in.
Not a lot to look at.
I absolutely did. Yeah.
100% acceptable.
Yeah.
100%.
All right. Well,
I remember, like I said, I remember when Turn It Around came out. Do you know Turn It Around double 7-inch? That, you know, that was like the first shot off the bow. That's before Lookout. That's everything. That's MRR putting out.
Yeah.
Here's some bands that play at Gilman.
Yeah.
But it's like, it's Operation Ivy, it's Sweet Baby that becomes Green Day,
MTX,
Crimp Shrine, it
Mr.
is
T. Yeah.
it is, you know, and then what becomes almost, you know, the first 20-30 releases of Lookout, from, you know, Mr. T Experience to the Yeasty Girls or whatever.
Yeah.
You know, it's all that. Monsula, I think, is Monsula on there? No, I think Monsula's later.
Think so.
They're on there. But just like it was like, this is like, it's a bomb going off.
Yeah.
And the East Bay was just like, and yes, people know who Green Day is now, but coming up, even through Operation Ivy and everything, it was like, what was going on at Gilman was revolutionary to the entire punk rock scene.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. And it hit me at the right age, so I was right there.
You're right there.
You're right there.
Hey guys, what's going on?
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Well, okay. I appreciate the you know, the Godzilla talk and the musician stuff too, because like I said, I haven't really gotten to expand on it or chat about it much in these sessions. But before we go, I figured we would circle back into some of the, you know, meat and potatoes, I think, of what these conversations.
Actually, what there's fat, you're gonna have to put like a thing on the bottom. It's like, are we talking about this here, this here? You can skip to, you know,
We got
56
5 minutes
minutes in
left.
to talk about the stuff that you actually want to talk about.
Well, just in general, there are a lot, you guys, and you've been saying this for, I think the past 6 months, maybe longer, that, this time frame, you guys are going to be catching up with a lot of stuff shipping, and a lot of stuff
Between now and January, it's starting to show up, and it's really going to get going.
Yeah. Well, and 20 minutes before we started, these lovely these lovely individuals, the reptilians, showed up. I've been really excited for these because Slythe is still my favorite Ultimates figure. So it's like,
I do remember that quote that you were like, Slythe is my favorite. I was like, okay, we're gonna see if you like these reptilians.
Well, but I've also gotten, Ghost Jaga and the Genghis Frog release of the wave of the Ninja Turtle since the last time we talked. And I've got to tell you, I have really everything has been so solid, and just these have all been just some of the best, I think, Ultimates that I've added to my collection ever. And I don't know, it's just been, feel like they're really rolling at this point, and a lot of stuff is coming, and it's exciting right now.
Yeah, and I think this is going to sound, a little goofball, but I think we talked about this before, where I was saying, getting ahead of all this stuff, when we talk about some of the earlier waves of Thundercats and Turtles and stuff, where partners and everybody, I think we talked about this before, were over ordering because they knew there was going to be additional demand, and then they quit over ordering. And so you're already seeing it, like the amount of people hitting us up about Ghost Jaga, like, I need it, it's already going for crazy on the secondary market. Like, all these coming, the waves, Genghis Frog wave, those Thundercat reptilians, Ghost, all this stuff that's coming out now, nobody ordered any extra. Like, if you didn't order it, you didn't get it. And I'm not trying to make that negative. It's just like, I know everybody's gotten weary of pre-orders and weary of the idea that if they can just wait and get it when it comes out, rather than pre-booking these things. It has not been starting a year plus ago, that is not the case. Like, they're not here. Like Ghost Jaga right now, I mean, I haven't looked today on eBay, but what my staff has been telling me, and so the feedback I've been getting so far is people are losing their minds because so many people didn't buy it. They figured they'd get it when it landed, and that's not available, and they're just gone, and that's it.
Do you see that more as like things returning to the mean, or like is it a roller coaster?
I feel like we're in the trough right now.
Okay, so more.
I feel like we're in the trough,
tangent wave.
We're not back to the mean.
Okay.
Because the same thing. Everybody, we were at the mean. Everybody went higher for a little while, got overextended. Everybody came way down. Which I think everybody's seen for the last while, like everybody and their grandmother putting stuff on sale, and because they overbought. And now we're in the trough, because when they were overbought, they said, I'm not buying anything except what's here. And then where we've got to go is back to the mean. So I do feel like I'm in a trough, and I'm not trying to make it difficult on anybody, but I think what you're going to see more and more over these next few months is, as all this stuff delivers and people are like, oh, that's really cool,
harder to get a hold of.
If there is extra inventory out there, it's going to be extremely limited. So and I'm not saying that in the super negative way, and I'm not trying to coax people, but also like, hey, if we're running a pre-order and you don't pre-order it, it is going to be like the old days, like the master days, and like all that other stuff, where if you didn't pre-order it, you're not going to get it. And it's not negative. It's just, we build the order.
Right.
And that's been artificially buoyed by people, somebody like Big Bad or Entertainment Earth or Diamond, saying, I'm going to buy extra so I have inventory. It's not available.
I was going to say, I mean, it's not really a change to how you do your core business of it, because that's how you do it, right? It's the partners.
That's how we've been doing it for years and years and years. But because it was available in other places, you know, same thing.
Yeah.
Like those Chrome Silverhawks, I hope you ordered them.
I did. I did.
Yeah.
I'm ready.
Well, I'm just saying in general, and I'm not
yeah.
trying. I'm sure that there's going to be somebody that's like, "What are you trying to do? Why are you trying to force us into?" It's just we're at a spot now, and we knew it would happen later, but it's going to start happening now very soon. Is that the ability that people have had over the last couple of years to still be able to get ultimates after release or wait until they show up won't be the case, and we'll have to see how that plays out in the market. I'm not trying to make it difficult for people, but it's going to be tricky.
I was going to say, I think you explained it as like, this is how it was at the beginning, and then it was here, and now it's kind of back, getting back to how it was, at the beginning, where if it wasn't in, there aren't extras out there. So
Yeah.
Well, I'm gonna have an opening party this weekend, but I'll tell you, this, you guys have been doing some toy versions of these. It's like, I can think of somebody who still needs a toy version that would be really cool as far as that goes. But we only have a couple of months left, since this is early November. Things are going to continue to ship, and I imagine new pre-order periods and things like that are still going to be happening with.
There's not a lot for the rest of the year because
Okay.
December is a relatively tough time. Let me double check my cheat sheet, because I can never remember, because I'm in hardcore in 25 right now, everybody.
I was gonna say, you gotta come back to the past.
I gotta bring it back. Yeah, there's only 3 more things for the rest of the year.
Okay.
And we've talked about one, which is Turtles Wave 11.
Yeah.
Everybody knows that's coming. And then there's 2 more one-offs in December, and that's it. But like Party Wagons, on
I was gonna ask about that.
Like it could be landing as early as late November for people.
Wow.
Like it's less than a month away. Like it's most likely first week of December, second week of December for most people. Same thing with Wave 7 of Thundercats.
Cool.
Cool. But yeah, that same thing with Party Wagon. Like, and I'm not saying it this way, but if you did not order a Party Wagon and somebody else still has inventory, I can guarantee with a fair degree of accuracy, but if they have extra inventory, it is extremely limited. If you want a Party Wagon, I can't sell it to you. I don't have any. Like,
right.
You should check in with those guys.
And the history of the Thunder Tank, I think a lot of people were,
like I said, I think we talked very specifically about what happened with Thunder Tank, where people had over ordered and then tried canceling their orders at the port, and that we had a lot of extra units all of a sudden that we typically would not normally have. But even then, I think it's pretty much gone from everywhere.
I was gonna say, I was alluding to, it's like, again, people see it, they see you with it, they see pictures of it, but they don't really have that real good handle on it until they get it in their own space. And when other people start to see that, or experience it firsthand through someone else, that's when the eyes kind of open wide, and it's like, oh yeah,
like that.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, all right, well, I think we are just about time, but you said that you had something that was weird.
You said you were like, oh, I want to talk to you about the reptilians, which you haven't opened yet. I'm glad you got them today.
Yeah,
I'm glad you got Ghost Jaga. We didn't even talk about Ghost Jaga. We didn't.
The accurate to the timeline of the other Thundercats Jaga. He's important. That's an important version.
he is. And then sorry, I'm looking at my notes on here just real quick. And then we didn't even talk about your Turtles wave that you got.
Well,
you want to do 10 seconds on Turtles? Or
yeah,
no?
I was gonna say, Genghis Frog was the one that stood out to me or stands out to me because he's one of those really early vintage figures. But I think he's one of those. He's one of these figures now that I think he's going to catch a lot of people who are getting him now or will be getting him soon way by surprise, because it's like I saw him and it's like, okay, yeah, Genghis Frog, cool, let's take it. But and he's one of those that you get in hand and it's like that figure is pretty. He's one of my favorite TMNT Ultimates. He's right there with Ray and Muckman, and that's saying a lot coming from me because those are my two favorite characters. So
yeah, well, that's great. I'm glad that he lived up to expectations. Because we had Thundercat stuff coming out and everything. I was going to share. This was a really cool thing. Our Peruvian distributor showed up at Toy Fair with this. So this is a Peruvian version of the Cat's Lair with the blue head. It only came out in Peru.
That's awesome.
How crazy is that?
That is crazy. That's the US version. That's I don't have the small one like that, but man, the Peruvian one, that's cool.
Peruvian one with the blue head as opposed to the US one with, and so it's like that was crazy. And then they also gave me this vintage mask.
Awesome.
So Peruvian. I don't know if this is bootleg or not. The Cat's Lair is not. The Cat's Leg is licensed. I'm going to go on record and just make a grand assumption that this is most likely a bootleg. But it's got the little strings in here so you can wear it like a crown. But like with the sight beyond sight right there.
Yeah.
And then Wily Kit and Wily Cat hanging out on the side.
That's cool funny because it's like looking at the Wily Kit and Wily Cat, it's like they almost swapped their faces on them. It's like, wait
a minute. They also more have hoverboards than surfboards.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned the Ghost Jaga, and it's like I hope people who wanted it did order it, because the clear plastic with the paint and stuff on it to do that ghost effect. I had to take him outside to take a picture of him because the light just came through him really well. It's a really cool effect. And I mean, you guys have done translucent figures and things like that in the past, but I think he's my favorite of that style so far. And like I said, he fits in with the, I guess, show timeline of the Thundercats.
It's funny because I had a couple people reach out to me and like, why does he have a belt on when regular Jaga doesn't? I'm like, go back and watch the episodes. He's wearing a belt. Those Jaga's got a belt.
Yeah. Well, I don't know too with the reptilians. Do you have a favorite? Which one turned out to be your favorite? Because I think mine is the Brute, the darker colored one.
The club is my favorite accessory. That kind of pre-stumpy club.
I think that's with the guard. Maybe
I'll put it with all of them. Wacky with parts of trees.
Yeah. Well, maybe we'll have some more Thundercats and things, turtles to talk about when we come back in December. But I appreciate the time, and I hope your November is free and easy and not too overly chaotic as we head into the end of the year.
It'll always be a little bit chaotic, but you said there's a bunch of stuff landing. It's gonna be a fun end of year. There's some fun surprises out there. So hopefully we'll catch a few people be like, oh, I didn't know they were gonna do that.
Yeah. Well, and lots of stuff shipped, like as you said, hitting the ports and shipping out soon. So because I think Disney 3's got to be right here too. Gosh, I almost forgot about that. I got the email about that a little while back. I think they're getting close to.
I don't know if I have that note. I don't have that note of when that one's coming in because I was looking specifically at Turtles and Thundercats. So I have notes specifically in this document about when those were landing. So
cool.
Sorry, folks, I don't have that one at the ready.
Well, the most current news is always at the Ultimates update page at super7.com, so you can check that out. Right?
Wow! Look
How
at
about
that!
that? We'll
Look at that!
send the traffic right there. So it's a nice resource that's now organized by month. So you can just look at November and say, okay, this is what's scheduled to be here. So cool. Cool. All right. Well, Brian, thank you so much. And again, happy Godzilla Day. I hope
Happy
it's a
Godzilla Day to everyone.
weekend spent in
Happy Godzilla
celebration.
to you.
But yeah. All right, guys. Thanks so much for joining us again. And we'll be back in early December. So until next time, later.